is the government news brief. In the news, works at the police forensic lab is being brought up to international standards. The government acknowledges there is ethnic discrimination and what the government plans to do about the quality of care at homes for the elderly. I am Azim Khan. Welcome to this first edition of the government news brief. Government is moving to bring the forensic lab of the Guyana Police Force up to international standards. It has been noted that while the lab is functioning, more can be done with specialized training. Shanta Gobadan reports.
Scientific techniques are being employed to solve crimes. These form part of the modernization process in keeping with international best practices as crime-fighting efforts in Guyana accelerate.
All those that have come from overseas and have seen the lab are so impressed with it. The facilities there, the quality of the personnel, like I mentioned, and a number of other things. And they're very good at forged documents, finding out. They're now getting a capacity in relation to specimen counterfeit monies and managing to detect it very quickly, how to testify in a court of law. Because remember, everything comes back. If you want successful prosecutions, how good a quality they are in relation to testifying in a court of law.
Training is critical to the maintenance of the facility's integrity as well as the credibility of its results and findings. These must be able to withstand scrutiny in a court of law.
They have to learn that aspect of it too. They might be good scientists, but it's one thing when you're a good scientist, you know, well, this is a forgery. But when you go in and you start hearing the questions defense lawyers ask you, all of a sudden you remind yourself, I'm really green at this thing, I didn't prepare for that, and all kinds of things. So that kind of preparation is now going in to the personnel there.
The forensic lab, built at a cost of $1.4 billion, has a highly specialized evidence recording system for lab information management that keeps track of evidence submitted for analysis. It specializes in the analysis of toxic substances, narcotic and pharmaceutical drugs, alcohol, forged documents, and biological fluids, among others.
The coalition government has acknowledged that there is ethnic discrimination in Guyana and intends to address it. Seneca Thorne reports that as a result, the government, through the Ministry of Social Cohesion, is engaging communities to implement initiatives that will eliminate this inequality.
It's because of these disparities, that these ethnic conflicts and so on in our country, that has prompted this new government to establish this new Ministry of Social Cohesion, because we find that there are lots of areas where the focus is on ethnicity. And I must tell you that at the last general and regional elections, this was very, very evident.
Pilot projects are being implemented to reduce these inequalities in order to achieve social cohesion. Already, sensitization sessions have been held in regions 1, 3, 5, 6, 9, and 10.
It will not happen in a day or a month. It is going to take some time because people must want to have this change. They must want to have this togetherness into our communities. We must stop fostering race. So you are Afro-Guyanese and I'm Indo-Guyanese. We recognize that we have differences in our cultures, in our race and whatever. But those differences must not be barriers to development.
Acknowledging that Guyana is racially divided and segregated is the first step in addressing the ethnic discrimination and insecurity, and it is the view of the government that social cohesion will be achieved over time through varying initiatives.
Over the years, residents in the hinterland have bemoaned their housing situation. This is now being addressed. Shanta Gobadan reports that Phase 3 of the Low-Income Settlement Program will address hinterland housing development.
The coalition government is committed to renewing and making the housing dream of all indigenous citizens a reality. It has been successful in getting the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, to commit to investing US $3 million for the implementation of a low-income settlement program solely targeting the housing needs of the hinterland.
Hinterland development, I'd like to assure again members of the hinterland and particularly of the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, is a major priority of this government. We recognize that Guyana's First Peoples, our indigenous sisters and brothers, have been neglected for far too long. The administration is committed to improving the standards of living of citizens who live and work in our large and diverse hinterland.
This third low-income settlement program, as requested by the government of Guyana, follows up on a second program of which US $27.9 million was made available by the IDB. 19,000 people benefited from that program. It consolidates on the hinterland component, which saw the construction of 122 core houses and the repair of 86 roofs in Regions 1 and 9.
Government recognizes that Guyana is a large and diverse landscape with a wide diversity of geographic and cultural features. As such, a one-size-fits-all approach will not work. Each community has its own unique needs, and solutions to problems will necessarily have to be tailored to meet individual needs.
Improved housing for many indigenous people would be a fundamental step towards affording them one of life's necessities of acquiring shelter. This is why the coalition government proposed building houses for indigenous Guyanese in need as one of its priorities.
Seneca Tour now reports that the government is looking to standardize the quality of care at homes that cater for the elderly.
With a significant percentage of the country's population being over age 65, many of whom are nursed in private and public institutions, there is need for a standard that outlines care for the elderly. This is being addressed.
What I came and I met was a work in progress in terms of the daycare facilities, the early childhood development policy. In terms of the standards for the home, it was talked about, but we have not seen or have not found anything that indicate that any work was done by the Commission of the Family. And so we're hoping that these are the lists, amongst the list of things that we have for this commission that will come in place very soon.
It is expected that the Commission for the Elderly and the Social Protection Ministry, taking a more proactive role, would provide a structure to reduce incidents of neglect. It would also aid in monitoring the standards of care provided to older people in private and public institutions.
You have to look at it holistically, not only the homes, but also who is taken into a home, what are the other services that are provided there, whether there's a doctor on call, whether there's a nurse, whether the persons who are employed in these institutions, whether they too have the training, the necessary training to take care of these people. So it's a holistic, it's not just the building, it's just the facilities within, but it's also the service and the service providers that we'll have to look at.
Working in collaboration with the Commission for the Elderly and the Commission for the Family, government will be initiating a program to target elderly on the coastline and in the hinterland.
All persons entering Guyana must report to immigration officers at the port of entry. This is in keeping with Guyana's Immigration Act, Chapter 1402. The Ministry of Citizenship is working to ensure that all inbound passengers are aware of this law. This follows from reports that from time to time persons have not been allowed entry into Guyana.
The Immigration Act, Chapter 1402, ensures compliance. Internationally, it is required that all foreign nationals arriving in a specific country meet the requirements, as these will determine whether or not they are eligible to remain.
Those are the main areas which persons are judged when they arrive at countries as to their suitability to be landed as immigrants.
Guyana has several agreements with foreign countries which are reciprocal in nature. These allow for certain categories of visitors to enter the country without visas.
Every immigration officer will assess those means based on the circumstances presented to him, because different passengers will have a different set of circumstances attending his arrival, his or her arrival, and the immigration officer would have to exercise his initiative.
In more complex situations, such as a visitor staying at a hotel, the immigration office will have to make a judgment based on the amount of cash the visitor has, as against the period of time he or she intends to stay in the country.
You are watching the Government News Brief. This can be viewed Monday through Friday at 5:45 p.m. right here on the National Communications Network. Remember that the Government News Brief and all other GINA programs can be viewed on our website, YouTube channel, and our Facebook page.